I did not visit with?
Yeah, it was me, Jeff, and I have
Marchie.
no questions.
Okay, Jeff Marchie. No questions. So I just want to say one thing that Peter will get to. But I just want to say we usually do not, but we will have a hard stop tonight at 5 minutes to the hour, whatever the hour is in your location, because we've switched this meeting, as most of you have realized. We have a caregivers meeting starting at the top of the hour at 8 o'clock Eastern. And so we have to close this room in order to segregate the recording and then reopen it. So I just want to let you know, we just cannot go past, and we have to close 5 minutes early. So we've got to be on our toes. Us moderators have to be on our toes tonight.
Okay, with that said, I will keep it moving. I might have to cut some of you off just because quite a few of you want to speak.
So, Peter, I think we need to say something
Yes,
to start.
I'm going to.
Give him a chance. Give him a chance,
Okay.
Herb.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to start the meeting by mentioning that one of our longtime participants, that probably almost all of you know because he's been on our calls up until a few weeks ago, participating actively, not only on this call, but on our Speaking Freely calls, or the Reluctant Brotherhood calls, on my low and intermediate calls. He's been an integral part of our life. That's Jake Hannum. And Jake passed away early yesterday morning. And it's sad for all of us. I mean, he was an integral part of this family, this brotherhood. You know, we all loved him and appreciated him dearly. He pioneered a lot of the technical aspects of our calls, the recording aspect, the YouTube videos, a lot of things. And it reinforces to me the seriousness of our disease. All of us on this call are dealing with advanced prostate cancer to some degree or another. Jake fought the battle for, what, 12, 13 years or more. He did courageously, rarely complaining. Yes, he was concerned about over a number of things. We sought some unique treatments because he kind of managed his own care with the help of some oncologists in Maryland, the DC area. And our heart goes out to his family, his wife, his two sons. I think his first grandchild is due to be born. He missed that occasion. So we're going to have a special gathering. We haven't decided yet which day. It's going to be a Sunday, either the Sunday the 22nd or Sunday the 20, whatever it is.
20th or the 27th, Peter.
27th. And we will let you know. We're going to do a special video memorial in conjunction with some others who aren't in the AnCan group particularly, but we're also very close to Jake. So look for that announcement. We'll be getting that word out to you as soon as we decide which day and what time. So I'm not going to open it up for remembrances right now for Jake, but I want you to just keep it in your heart and keep everybody on this call and others that have been on this call and maybe will come back or new ones, because this is, as you know, by and large, most people with prostate cancer have low or intermediate disease and will die of something else. But there are about 25% of us diagnosed each year with a more serious grade of disease that could well pass away from this. And that's why we're all active on this call, trying to help each other, find the best possible care we can, and because we care about each other. So I think that's all I want to say at this point.
there's one practical thing that I want to say. Most of you may also, Jake was a moderator, and his function on the call, amongst other things, making sure we ran technically smoothly, was that he was the chief muter. And we now don't have a chief muter, and we haven't organized ourselves for tonight. So either Joe Gallo or Ben Nathanson or Joe's got to leave shortly. So Ben, would you please assume the role of chief muter for tonight? That means that if we're getting background noise from you, we are going to mute you. In the past, if your microphone went from green to red, it was probably Jake that was doing that. And so in his honor and his memory, we cannot have a call without a chief muter. So until further notice, Ben, your muter in chief. And Peter, we're getting, I've had at least 2 complaints. Your microphone is not good. I mentioned it to you too.
How about now?
We're having,
Better?
there are people.
Is it better now?
It's a little better, yeah.
I didn't have it plugged in.
It's a little better.
I didn't have my.
It's, Peter, you got to get closer to the computer somehow.
It's very muffled.
How about?
I can't.
How about now? Any better?
So, no, not really, but keep going. If it continues to be bad, Herb, I, or Ben will step in and we'll figure it out, or Len will step in. Maybe Len can step in and you can take Len's place in 2 weeks, but keep going for the time being.
Okay, Jim Marshall is going to introduce a new member of our group tonight, Roy. Roy's from Corpus Christi, Texas, and I'll let Jim just give you a quick introduction to Roy. You're muted, Jim. There you go.
Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, I would like to introduce retired Air Force Colonel Roy Selinger. I first happened to hear about him in about 1975 at the Pentagon. Got tasked with sticking together the first truly cloud computing fee for service, get $0 anyway out of a budget, and to provide computer services. And so eventually he happened to leave there, except he then established this place. I ended up there in about 1982, and it was a raving success, although you will never hear about this place because it was a political hot potato. All of the government agencies said, I want my own computer systems, and to hell with this thing called cloud computing, although it did survive until about 1999. Anyway, so Roy happened to contact me in about 2019 with prostate cancer, and so anyway, I will let them tell you about it. His son is here, and with Michael to assist him. He is 94 years old, going strong. Okay, I will turn it over to Michael and Roy.
Okay. Can you hear me? I imagine you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Actually,
Michael.
Mark. It's Mark.
Oh,
It's M-A-R-K.
Mark.
Yeah.
the procedure is that Peter will then ask you a series of questions.
Okay.
And so he will hit the list.
Okay, you're 94, you live in Corpus Christi, Texas. And when were you diagnosed with prostate cancer, Roy?
I'm gonna speak for him because it's hard for him to hear.
Okay, Mark, when were you diagnosed?
2004 with a Gleason score of 7.1.
A Gleason score of 7. Was it?
Yes.
Okay, was it a 3 plus 4 or 4 plus 3?
I don't know that.
Okay, so is he getting any kind of treatment for prostate cancer?
Okay, back in early 2005, he had radiation, and that was successful for a number of years. And of course, in 2017, it came back.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut to the chase a little bit here. Has anybody recommended further treatment for him?
Yes, he started with Eligard in 2019, and Janssen. They were going to give him Zytiga, but he has stage 3 kidney disease, and they thought the Janssen would be easier on the kidneys. He was on that for about 8 months.
Okay, is he doing okay with that? Is he having a lot of fatigue?
Yes, he takes Prolia as well, and he's now on Xtandi, and he's been on the Xtandi now since the beginning of the year,
Okay.
last year.
Okay, so I'm going to cut to the chase a little bit because Roy's a very unusual person. So from my understanding, besides the kidney disease, he's also has type 2 diabetes, and he's got a heart valve as well, correct?
He has a mechanical heart valve. He takes warfarin for that.
Right. So he's a remarkable guy. To be dealing with all this at 94 and prostate cancer on top of this is kind of crazy. What's your concern right now? Is he managing the drugs okay? Reacting to them?
Well, in 2020, his PSA was at 1, and starting in 21, it went to 2, 4, and 8, and then in the fall, it dropped to 5, and it has gone back up just this last week to 9.5.
And is he seeing an oncologist or anybody like at MD Anderson, or where is he being treated?
He's being treated here in town by a general oncologist.
Okay. Well, and what's your main concern now? PSA rising? Is that the main concern?
Yes, that's it. Because we're not really sure. He had a bone scan about 2 months ago, and the bone scans showed it was quite good. And he does have metastasis at 3 or 4 spots on his spine, hip, and shoulder.
Well, I'm going to ask some of the other guys what they think. It's a pretty unusual situation. I'm sure the doctors are very hesitant to treat much because of his other existing conditions. But anybody have any thoughts on this? Anybody else?
So I guess the real question is, what are the potential major issues that could happen in the future with or without treatment, right? I think that there are certain kinds of systemic treatment which are pretty toxic. And again, I don't know how well they work with your dad?
Yeah, we're most concerned about his kidneys.
Uh-huh. So I mean, so you said that basically Jansa was not tolerated well?
No, it was fine. It just was not effective.
Uh-huh.
And the Xtandi appeared to be somewhat effective when he started it, but the PSA initially went down, and then over the last several months, it has gone up from a 5.7 to 7.5 to 9.
Right. So the real issue that this is not an unusual course of the disease, that you would become sensitive to these agents and then you become insensitive. And so the question really is, and here's a case where, I mean, I know you're being treated by a general oncologist, but we, in this group, hope that you would be able to see a GU oncologist who would have a sense of what are the kinds of treatments that he could give your dad that are going to be beneficial and not hurt him.
Okay. Yeah, that's what Jim Marshall was telling us.
I mean, everybody in this group is on the same page here in terms of, you know, we want to see your dad respond to therapy, but I guess my own concern is that some of the therapies are pretty toxic.
I would like to say that I'm not sick, I have no pain, and I feel good. And I walk about a mile a day with a walker.
Great,
Wonderful.
wonderful, yeah.
That's wonderful. But I mean, I would be concerned a lot about what kind of treatment next. I mean, and so I mean, where are you located? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Corpus Christi,
Huh?
close to Houston, Corpus Christi.
Close to Houston.
It's
Okay.
2 hours,
So,
it's 3 hours from Houston. We're on the coast.
okay, so if you wouldn't mind driving to Houston, there's an absolutely fabulous GU oncologist who I actually just had a conversation with on Sunday at Houston Methodist Hospital.
Yeah.
And I would say that she would be somebody to talk to.
That's not something we could do as a Zoom.
He may
Yes.
well do it as a Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
she does do Zoom conferences. That's how I talk to her. And I'm sure that she would do it for your dad.
Okay. I think Jim gave us her name, but if you don't mind, if you could tell me again.
I think we're
It's
going to
in
put
the-
it in the chat window.
It's in the
Okay.
chat. It's in the chat window, and I'll put the telephone number and a link. Do you want to just explain how to use the chat window?
Right. So if you notice, I mean, can you see the chat window in the where you can open up that bubble in the upper right-hand corner of your screen?
Got
In
it.
the upper right-hand, and you'll see that if you open up the chat window, you'll see her name there.
Okay, yeah. More difficult than ours.
Well,
Okay.
Dr. E is what we call her, and she's happy with that.
Okay.
But I think, you know, I don't know that any of us really have a sense of what's appropriate without knowing more about your dad's kidney function, his liver function, I mean, yes, the fact that he's not having any pain and he's exercising is absolutely great. I mean, that's totally positive. But I think that's where you need to go.
Okay, we'll give her a call. Should I go online and try to find the phone number?
Her phone number is in the chat window.
Not yet.
Okay, it
Oh,
appeared
yes,
in my
it's
chat.
Mark. It's in there now.
And yes, Jim, she was previous. She left MD Anderson recently.
Okay, I got it.
So other than that, are there any other questions that we might address tonight?
No, we're meeting with his oncologist and his urologist, both different meetings on Friday, and I just wanted to have something, different, because I have gone to these meetings in the past with what I find online. I've given her a list of medications and treatments, and we kind of go through it, and she tells me what can be done, what can't be done. She did do a genetic test to see if he could use, say, the Keytruda, and she seems to be quite competent, but unfortunately, his kidneys are pretty much okay. They're in the about 35 range of function, and he's not having any issues, but you don't want to mess it up, so we're just trying to find something that would be not too rough on him.
Right. I mean, I think that's where that's what we're all thinking, that there's a balance here between how severe toxicities can be from some of these drugs versus what anybody can take.
Right. So Mark and Roy, just on a positive side, don't be too scared of your PSA is still, I mean, even though it's climbing, it's not at some out of control level. Many of us have been on fighting this disease for 5, 10, 15 years or more. And it's so it's not out of hand. It's not something to be panicking about. And so you want to get to the right doctor, and I'm sure Eleni or whoever you end up with can probably guide you. They're going to be pretty cautious, probably. I don't think they'd steer you toward any kind of systemic treatment such as chemotherapy at this age, but there are some other things that they probably could work with you on.
Well, that's good. That's good information, and it's kind of what I expected. The problem was you go online and you read all this stuff on Google, whatever, and there's so much out there. It's so hard to figure out what is usable.
Right. I have a friend who just went through radiation at the age of 90 at MD Anderson this past year. So it's amazing how treatments are not particularly tied to age, although doctors have to be very cautious, particularly with the other conditions that Roy has there.
Well, we're also concerned about the COVID, but
Right.
not quite as much as we were. But I still don't know how it would affect him with his diabetes.
Right. Okay, well, stay with us. We have you. Do we have your email?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's keep in touch, and we'll keep in touch with Jim Marshall with you, and if any of us have some other ideas or you have any other questions, please keep in touch with us. Okay. But see if you can contact Dr. Astafiev and see what she has to say. That'd be great.
When you reach out to Dr. E's office, make sure they know that you're referred from the AnCan group.
Okay. Very good.
And come back on here in a week or so. We meet every week, and let us know how you've done with Dr. E and with your other oncologist and the urologist. Just keep us posted, And any way we can help you, we're happy to do it. But just keep us in the loop.
And you'll send an email letting us know when the meetings will be?
You are on the list, so you should get an email before every meeting.
Very good.
Okay?
I do want to follow up with one of Peter's comments, which is, you know, for some of these lesions in the bone, radiation can be very effective. And and I don't know that age is always a contraindicator to radiation.
What about a PSMA? He hasn't had a PET scan, I think, since 2020, which showed the bone lesions, and then he had the biopsy.
Yeah. I would talk to Dr. E about that. She could probably set it up for you without any problem.
Do you know by chance if they whatever dye they use that is somewhat toxic?
Well,
the dye Len, maybe you have more insight into this.
I don't believe there is a dye for PSMA scanning. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Right. They did a PET scan in the past, and she mentioned that she didn't want to do many of them because she thought it would be detrimental to his kidneys.
Well, Dr. E would be able to answer that question because it's not a dye; it's a radionuclide that's going into you, and whether you can tolerate that—that's a question for someone like Dr. E. And she could set up the scan if it's needed.
This is John. I think I remember when I got my oxygen scan that I had to have kidney function test first.
Okay.
Okay, but again, that's for Actium. Everything's a little bit different. So as long as she knows what the issues are, as long as she's going to make the right decisions. So I think, again, as everyone like the docs here, so we can't tell you the chemistry of the scans, but we suspect that the PSMA scan, it may not be an issue, but we don't know. We don't know because they do give you an infusion, and they've got to suspend the active ingredient in that infusion, and I don't know whether the infusion they give you when it passes out through the kidneys. I mean, what do they suspend these conjugates in?
Well, no, but whatever it is, they get excreted in the kidneys, and one of the things that always comes up on a PSMA PET scan is kidneys as black spots. So clearly, it comes out through the kidneys. The weather so much that you have to have good 100% kidney function. I am not sure, but I'm sure Eleni will.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to move on. We have to move on because it's.
Okay, I'd like to leave you with what Jim Marshall was alluding to. Al Gore did not invent the internet. My father did.
Oh, very good. Congratulations.
This was at ARPA?
Absolutely, I second that because anyway, I was an IT guy for 45 years, and it was all because of Roy.
Okay.
Hey, guys, we've really got to move on because we're short of time tonight, but thanks a lot, and come on back, and we'll give you the time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stephen.
Thank you very much.
Stephen Nordstrom, you're up.
Okay, I'm here.
Go.
I just have a real quick update. I had a reoccurrence in August. I went to see Dr. Shmulewitz at Chicago. He recommended a Polarify. We found one lesion on my spine, and I just completed in December the SBRT 3 sessions, and I started abiraterone, the low dose, and Lupron, and everything's looking great. My PSA is undetectable, And just one thing, we're always talking about this low dose abiraterone, which I'm on, and I talked to Dr. Schmulowitz about it, and he basically said, you just want to eat a low-fat meal if you do this. And he didn't give me any caloric amounts or anything like that. He just said, just stay away from fatty foods, and if you eat your oatmeal and fruit, you're great. So anyway, I'm doing great, and I feel good, and that I just wanted to give you an update on that.
You know, that's good to hear, because we've talked a lot about diet on that low dose. The question I have is, with that low dose, what dose of steroids, what type of steroids, and what dose of steroids are you taking, Steve?
Prednisone 5 milligrams in the morning, and it's
one time.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And he said, I really asked him, I said, is there any other guideline? And he said, no, just we want you to stay away from the fat. And so he said, my oatmeal and fruit is great. So, and that's what he gave me. So I just, go ahead.
The one thing I wanted to say, because we're hearing it more and more, is that the Dex may be a better drug. The abiraterone originally was approved with prednisone, actually with 10 milligrams of prednisone, usually prescribed 5 milligrams twice a day. Most people now, if they use prednisone, most docs will use 5 milligrams either once or twice, 2.5 twice a day, or one time 5. But I mean, there is a, and I'd like Len or Herb to speak about this because they've been on it. There's a building movement amongst the GU medoncs to move towards Dex because it has advantages. Well, gents, what are the advantages of the dexamethasone over the prednisone?
Well, there's not a lot of data, but there was a phase 2 trial showing that patients taking abiraterone with dexamethasone fared better than those who were taking prednisone, but there were also more side effects with the dexamethasone. You know, the metabolic syndrome features were a little bit more pronounced on dexamethasone. So it's a more powerful steroid. It's 10 times more potent than prednisone, which is why the dose of prednisone, as you said, is 5 milligrams. For dexamethasone, they'll give you 0.5 milligrams. If I can find it, I'll put the reference in the chat box for you to read yourself.
That'd be great. I'll ask him. I'm meeting with Schmulowitz on Friday, so I'll just ask him about it, what he thinks.
Well, you look pretty bright. Look like you're tolerating the drugs pretty well. Are you getting exercise?
Every day.
Good. Keep that up.
Well, he's not disclosing everything here. He's looking pretty bright because he just moved into a beautiful new home in Telluride. That's why he's not in Cedar Rapids all the time in the winter, right, Mr. N?
That is correct. That's correct. Okay. I happen to be in Illinois right at this second, but we just came back from Telluride, so yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Why the low-fat diet?
That's what they recommend.
It's not a diet. It's not so much a diet as you take. The normal way of taking Abby has been 1,000 milligrams with no food. However, Dr. Schmulowitz and others argue that you can get the same effect if you take a quarter of that with food to increase the absorption of that 250 milligrams to give you the same efficacy as 1,000. So it's not so much a total diet. It's just the food you take when you're taking the drug.
Yep.
Let me expand on that just a tad. Abiraterone is processed through the liver, and when you eat, the liver becomes more active and is able to process the abiraterone much more efficiently. So normally when you take abiraterone, they tell you to take it an hour before your meal and not eat for at least an hour. And the reason is because if you take the abiraterone with food, it can be pretty dangerous. Although we've heard recently that there are some docs telling you to take it with food when it stops working. Although that sounds pretty dodgy. We're not docs, but I don't know I'd want to do that. But we've heard it. If you do take it with food, you have to take a lower dose. So what they're saying, and this goes back to the early days of abiraterone. I mean, I remember trials back in 2013, 2012 when they were testing this out. It never got approved because Janssen never had any interest in selling a quarter of the amount when they could sell the full amount and just have you take it an hour before. But now more and more docs are saying, look, you can get it, you can get the generic, and why don't you start using it in a more efficient way?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Carl Forman, tell us what's up.
Hello. I'm glad to see Kevin on the call here. Quickly, Kevin has been my brother and partner in the trial that I have just completed at Weill Cornell. So I'm sure he'll have his chance at some point in the future to give himself a little more airtime to talk about his background. So I met with Dr. Sierra at the Workers' Cancer Institute. I'm not going to rehash everything that I've been through because most of you who have been on here before know my story. And Dr. Sierra has said that based upon his review of my results and the fact that I was taken off of the trial last week at Weill Cornell, which included actinium and enzalutamide as well as Keytruda. So I'm off of the daily enzalutamide at this point since then. And whenever my last Keytruda infusion was several weeks ago, that was it over there. My scans and the reports of the bone scans and the CT scans, when I looked at them, it didn't look like there was very much evidence of my disease being worse than what they had been. The only thing that I read from the reports is that they discussed some nodules in the lungs, that there were 3 identifiable nodules, and they were in the millimeter size. And from the previous scan, which was at week 12 versus last week at week 24, they've just about doubled in size. So from 3 milligrams to about 8 milligrams, which I figured, okay, well, that's still pretty small. And my PSA had continued to rise. The last PSA reading at that time was 62. So that had risen from 57 from the last report or the last blood work to the most recent last week. So I didn't think there seemed to be much actionable for this, but it was very interesting, eye-opening when I met with Soraya and he said that he looked at the scans and specifically in the lungs, and he actually showed me on his computer what the status of my lungs are. And he showed me where the 3 identifiable nodules were lighting up on the scan. And then he started counting some others. some other nodules, and along with showing me, he counted a total of 16 nodules, which is not a good thing. And as many of you may or may not know, any kind of metastasis to which was identified as a visceral metastasis, which is metastasis to a organ, makes things somewhat more challenging to be able to treat. And radiation is not an option because I need a more systemic type of an approach. And so he agreed with Dr. Tagawa's parting discussion with me last week that he believed that I should consider chemotherapy, and I discussed that with you guys last week. Tagawa had said I should go ahead with docetaxel. Based upon my discussions here and on other venues, support groups, it looked to me that the cabazitaxel with carboplatin is probably a better type of a chemo treatment for me. And talking to Dr. Soraya, he agreed with that, and I do have my first treatment scheduled in 3 weeks for that.
Okay.
So that's my quick update.
Okay, Carl, we're with you.
Any reason that you're waiting 3 weeks to start, Carl?
Yes, and basically that's been more my doing because of the fact that I have 3 other oncologists that are chiming in concerning my condition and what options I might want to consider, including a doctor who works with Dr. Denmead in Johns Hopkins, Dr. Raul Agarwal at UCSF, and Dr. Mark Stein at Columbia Presbyterian. Dr. Mark Stein had worked previously at the Rutgers Cancer Institute, so they know him well, he knows them well. And Dr. Soraya said that he had spoken with Dr. Stein's team, research team, and he said
let me cut you off, okay? And so a couple of other want to say things, but I mean, I know Rahul pretty well. I think he would agree. I don't know, but I suspect he would agree given your history. But here's the problem. When you make these decisions for yourself by committee, the way you're doing it, it screws you up. And we keep telling you, you've got to pick a doc and go with that quarterback. Yes, you can get a second opinion, but if every decision you make, you've got to run past 4 or 5 docs, there may be differences of opinion. Then you're not going to know what to do. And then you're going to do something else. To take 3 weeks to start this when you could start it next week, time is of the essence. And you will do what you want to do. But as you know, there's a lot of us here who were hoping you would do this a long time back. And we just urge you to do it sooner rather than later, to pick a doc and go with that doc, because you're going to be back with the Tagawa situation again. Somebody's going to say, oh, we got a great trial. And you'll say, okay, let me look at this trial. Why? How do I know that? Because you've done it. We've seen you do it. I mean, this is tough love, Carl. You know we love you. You know we want you to do the best thing. But don't take 3 weeks when, Carbo, you've heard it from a couple of docs now. They're good docs. And man, you've got to get off the stick and do something and not get diverted. And speaking to Rahul or speaking to these other guys could divert you, and that's not going to be any good. That's my 2 cents.
Carl,
okay, so let me just...
Carl, do you have a port installed, or are you going to get a port?
No, I do not have one installed. It hasn't been discussed.
Did they recommend you get one? Did they want you to get a port?
Not yet.
Well, check that out,
yet.
because that can take 2 weeks in itself. So ask the doc if you need a port, because it makes it much easier. And you want to get on that right away, because that'll take a couple of weeks to heal.
Okay. I appreciate that. The situation at Columbia Presbyterian, New York Presbyterian, with Dr. Stein is that I'm definitely going to be hearing sooner than later, maybe in the next 24 hours or so, of what he may have to offer. And according to Dr. Sierra and his staff, there's a trial using cabazitaxel and carboplatin, which is what I intend on going on, plus a immunotherapy, imipilide. I'm not sure what's the letter I. But I figured, okay, well, these are two drugs that I'm going to be starting, so let's find out whether that third medication may or may not be useful, because I'll be in anyway.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
Okay. Well, let us
and
know.
in regards to yes, in regards to my previous, detailed research on any of the treatments I've been through, and I have always and will continue to vet my options to be comfortable enough that this is going to be my best course of action. And I appreciate what you're saying, Rick, but you've been tough on me over the many months, and I can appreciate it. And look, I'm going to make my own decisions. And as I said, I already have it scheduled for 3 weeks. Whether it's going to start in 2 weeks or 1 week, I don't think it's going to make. I hope I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I will follow up tomorrow based upon what you're saying, Peter, with the port issue, because as you said, it can take some time to heal. And I also, just to add quickly, the Tagawa trial that I was on, before I decided to go on that trial, I did reach out to Raul Agbal and a couple of other people, Dr. Marshall, who works with Dr. Denmead, and even Dr. Sierra. They all agreed. They said, wow, this sounds like a really good breakthrough trial. And they all wished me luck and told me to go ahead and proceed with that. So I have found it very beneficial to get these various opinions from some very well-known doctors. Dr. Sierra also has had discussions with Dr. Denmead and at Johns Hopkins, and at Rutgers they had previously done a BAT trial. So I got some useful information from him, and he basically said it's probably not a treatment that I want to proceed with, which is something that I was considering. So
okay,
I keep narrowing down the choices.
Let us know on Monday when you're going ahead. Yeah, keep us
okay
in the loop for sure. Okay.
Just a note, Carl. Just one note. When you go on chemo, it's going to open up other trials for you.
Right. And with soft tissue, I think the chemo is the way to go. If you've got soft tissue mets in your lungs and stuff, you want to do that. I mean, that was my case, not in my lungs, but someplace else. Okay. Yeah, Bill Bradford.
Yeah. Hey guys. Update for me. So as a recap, I had a prostatectomy last year, and then my PSAs never went down to the level they should, and so I had a PET CT scan, which detected a single metastasis in my hip bone, my right iliac crest, and I was being seen at MD Anderson. They put me on Eligard and abiraterone, and said that I would be a great candidate for the Extend trial that they're doing, which is giving SBRT for patients who have a single bone met. And I had to wait 3 months, got placed into the control arm, and said, I just wasn't happy with that, and said, can't I, as the patient, say, based on the Oriole study and some other studies that I've read about SBRT and oligometastatic disease. And they said, nope, we just don't do that. So I went up to Mayo and I got SBRT to my bone met through Dr. Stish, radiology oncologist. It was a single fraction. They said that's all I needed. Mayo's recommendation was you should come off everything and let's monitor you, and maybe that's it. And probably not, but if you want to get a vacation from the hormone therapy, I mean, I'm 56, and for me, MD Anderson telling me I'm on a lifelong hormone therapy didn't really sit well. So I talked to MD Anderson, and they said, okay, we're good with that. So I'm going to continue to be seen by the medical oncologist at MD Anderson, but I'm, you know, unless somebody convinced me otherwise, I'm ready to. I've already come off the abiraterone. As soon as I went on abiraterone, my liver enzymes went out of whack, so they had to cut me down to 750, which helped. But then I developed hypertension, and I don't know if it's from the abiraterone or just from the hormone therapy. So now I'm on hypertension medication, and it's like I'm just hoping that I can come off everything, do some wishful waiting, and take it as it comes based on that. So MD Anderson is going to give me a blood test and another scan in April. I had my Eligard injection in September, and it was a 6-month injection. So, you know, I still have undetectable testosterone and PSA, but hopefully by April, maybe my testosterone may start coming back. I think what I've heard is probably not until the summertime, maybe. But you know, that's my update. And Rick, I know you had recommended Dr. E as an alternative at Houston Methodist, as an alternative to MD Anderson. And I think your comment was, if anybody can keep you off of hormone therapy or keep you off of continuous hormone therapy, she could. So that's still on my kind of to-do list, but I was more importantly wanting to get the SBRT, which MD Anderson just would not do.
Let me give you some feedback on this. Is my feedback, and I was recently accused of pontificating. So if this is pontification, then you guys can tell me again. Over the years, when guys have been diagnosed with 4+5, and I think you had positive margins, did you not?
Yeah, I did have a bit of a positive margin, yes.
Right. And did you have anything did they see anything in the seminal vesicles?
Both were invaded.
Right. When I've seen that, it's always been a signal that you've got to hit this disease real hard if you don't want it to come back.
Yeah.
Real hard.
Yeah.
Right? And the guys that I know that have done follow-up, usually if seminal vesicles have been invaded, what they've done is they've done salvage radiation, early salvage radiation or adjuvant radiation, whatever you want to call it, within a pretty short period of time. And they've gone on hormone therapy continuously for 18 months or so. And the guys that haven't done that, and they've shorted, most of those, I've seen their disease come back. Now, this is just me anecdotally.
Right.
And as much as you don't want to be on, I mean, I was 56 when I went on hormone therapy, so I empathize. And I did it for 28 months. Didn't have seminal vesication. I did have cancer in my prostate bed.
Yep.
And that worked for me. I didn't have surgery because I knew I was going to have to do the radiation and the hormone therapy anyway, but it worked for me. I've had durable remission ever since. And what scares me, especially with, you know, we're not particularly huge fans of Mayo in Rochester. And what scares me is that guys go in and they tell them that they really don't want to be on hormone therapy, and they hear you and they say, okay, let's watch you for a while, we'll put you back on. Right. But I think putting you back on is asking for trouble. And if it were me, I'd stick it out for at least 18 months like Jim Ward did. And I'd also get the whole of my pelvic girdle radiated rather than just the spot RT, especially if you've got metastasis.
Yeah. Okay. And that was, I did get a second recommendation from a radiology oncologist here through University of Texas in Houston, a Dr. Quaja, and he had recommended that to go through and do the prostate bed radiation therapy, but I hadn't yet considered that.
Well,
Hey, Bill.
here's what I would do, Bill. I'd do yourself a favor. When you went, by the way, when you went to Mayo, when you went to MD Anderson, Dr. E was at MD Anderson. So she could have been, you could have seen her back then, back last summer. But if it were me right now and I was in Houston, I'd go over to make an appointment with her. Again, you can tell it came from us and tell her, look, I don't know whether I don't want to do it, but do you think I'm better off doing it?
Yeah.
Is it less likely to come back? Do you think I should get my pelvic girdle radiated? And see what she says. I would trust. She doesn't want to see you on hormone therapy. She's going to, my view would be she'd give you the best shot to get the longest time off of hormone therapy. What scares the heck out of me when you do this right now, where there's been some metastasis, is that it'll come back and then you'll never get off hormone therapy.
Right.
And MD Anderson will be right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And then the other thing I want to say for everybody, because this is important, is that you cannot be intimidated by trials. You cannot. The fact that you got into the control arm, you should have said, no, I'm out of here and please give me spot RT. You could have done that at MD Anderson. They have to go with you.
I tried, and he said, we won't do it. We don't do it.
Well, you could make a complaint. Talk to E about that. He'll have something to say. But you can pull out of a trial anytime.
Yeah, so I did.
I
did pull out, and obviously now that I've had SBRT, I'm ineligible anyways.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous.
I said I'm a patient and I want it, and I referenced the Oriole study and this and that, and he said, well, you know, there's a lot of organizations
I don't think that's
do it,
ethical.
but we won't do it.
I don't know enough. Maybe some other guys know this. Maybe Herb knows this.
Bill,
but I don't think if you pull out a trial, they can refuse to give you standard treatment. Herb,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
He mentioned if my cancer spread or if I needed it to manage pain, they would do it, but they would not do an ablative dose. That just was not yet considered standard of care, and you could go elsewhere and do it, but MD Anderson did not consider SBRT standard of care for oligometastatic disease.
Bill,
this is Jim Ward. Hey, Bill, I just wanted to ask you, who is your GU Med onc at MD Anderson?
The GU Med,
yes.
the GU oncologist. It's Dr. Al-Halabi.
Okay, I don't know that name, but
and the radiology oncologist was Dr. Kwan. Or I'm gonna have to check on that. I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
Bill,
but the point is, I don't think that's ethical. Go ahead, Herb.
This is Peter.
That wasn't me.
Bill, one quick question. When they did the SBRT, that was on your pelvis, correct?
That was on that was in my right iliac crest. I had a single bone mass.
So you might have trouble getting pelvic girdle radiation if they've already done SBRT at the top of the pelvis. You've got to be really careful with that because they can't do this. You got to talk to a really good radiation oncologist about that. The other thing is how often are you doing? How often are they doing blood work on you? You said April. How often are they doing it? 3 months?
So I've been doing it it started out every month and now it's to every 3 months.
Talk to Dr. E and see if you can go back to every month. You want to keep, if you're going to mess around with your ADT in any fashion or anything, And you want to do it every month. I've been doing it for every month for 8 years. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to keep a close eye on this stuff. And you want ultrasensitive
Yeah,
PSA,
okay.
for sure.
Well, you're giving me some food for thought. I mean, as it is, I wasn't scheduled for my next injection until middle of March, I believe. So I've got a bit of time anyways. But yeah, I might try and get in to see Dr. E at Houston Methodist. Yeah.
Yeah. And not just
And
that,
maybe
be careful with those 6-month shots, because our experience has been that, I mean, in your case, if you're going to let it wear off, it doesn't really matter. But we've seen quite a few examples where people, it doesn't keep your testosterone low in that 6th month.
Okay.
So, we've seen guys who are testing monthly, and their PSA creeps up in the 5th and the 6th month, because those 6-month depot shots are not that great. That we always tell our guys, if it were us, we'd go for a 3 or a 4-month max.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to keep.
Okay.
And Bill,
Thanks.
Okay,
Bill,
thanks.
I want to make one more comment.
Yeah.
Bill, if you were not 100% made up and we've made some doubts, don't stop the Abbey. You can always stop it later.
Okay.
And why do you say that, Herb? I mean, again, we can't get medical advice. You wouldn't stop it.
No,
Why would you not stop it?
Well, I would not stop it, because if he was on it and we was told to be on it, and then now you're saying, I'm not so sure I want to go off, what's the point of going on and off? It's medical. It just seems to me logical that if you thought you were
You're
gonna
either all
continue
in
it-
or all out.
Right, all in or all out. I wouldn't vacillate.
I just want to say to this group, we're not sending everybody to Dr. E, but when you're right in her backyard, or you're in Cornwall or something like that, boy, it's a natural. There are enough guys that have had 1 or 2 sessions with her, and they see what I see. She's super smart. She relates to you, and she cares. It's what you want from a doctor. By the way, just a quick heads up. Come on the 21st of March. The 21st of March. That's 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks from Monday.
No.
Because she's going to come on this session of March. Sorry, the 21st of March. That's not 2 weeks from Sunday. And the reason she's coming on is not to give you guys all advice about your disease. Don't come in with questions about your disease, please. She's coming on because she wants to hear from you what you want when you go in and see your GU medical oncologist. She wants to know, what is the ideal visit for you? What are you expecting when you go in to see your GU med onc? This is one of the things she's doing, and we're working with her, and we may well go out with a questionnaire on this. But she wants to improve the way that men are treated when they first see a GU med onc, and she wants to know from you what you want. So if you think of anything between then and now, write it down, bring it in. We're going to spend half an hour, and we're going to give her as much solid, good feedback that we can.
I'm sure she'll get plenty from
Hey, Bill. Hey, Bill, are you taking prednisone?
Yes.
Yeah, so my blood pressure was nearly 200 over 100 after 18 months on prednisone. And when I changed, because my PSA was rising, and went to dexamethasone, my blood pressure came down to normal.
Okay. So it wasn't being driven by the abiraterone, it was the prednisone.
No,
That
it's
was
the
my experience.
abiraterone too.
Okay.
The abiraterone too.
Yes, both of them.
Yeah.
I'm still on Abby.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be both, but we've heard before, Carl is not alone. We've heard before, that was one of the things I was trying to remember, so thank you. We've heard before that Dex is much better for your blood pressure. I mean, I had to go on lisinopril when I was on, I wasn't on Abby. I mean, Abby was just coming out when I was treated. So it's not unusual when you're on, when you're on a person. But what you're talking, Peter says, is Abby plus the steroid and the Dex may be better for, maybe work better.
Moving it.
Rick, could you put that in the chat, that Dexy, the name of that?
Dexamethasone. And also what happened was for 2 months, my PSA had started to rise. And when I went on dexamethasone, it leveled out for maybe it was 4 months. So it helped in that sense too. And also the prednisone was just giving me terrible insomnia. And again, when I moved to dexamethasone, I was sleeping better.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
So Carl Van Zee, please, Cal Van Zee, please speak up. When we were talking before about dexamethasone and that's what we wanted you to come on at that point. When I said to Len, we wanted you to say, this is why I like the dexamethasone, okay? We got the information, we just didn't get it at the time I expected it.
Well, I'm back on prednisone now with the chemo, but I'm sleeping okay. So maybe it just takes, a year and a half before it gets really bad for me.
Okay.
Okay, I hope when you guys go on and off the prednisone that you're doing it slowly and weaning yourself off of it, or talk to the doctor about that. You don't want to just stop it. It's not good for you.
Right.
I
was down to, I think I had a 3 milligram tablet and I was taking half of it a day at the end. And that was still just driving me crazy. My blood pressure was through the roof.
Right. But you don't want to just cold turkey it. You want to take it every other day for a while and, until you just wean yourself off of it. Talk to the doc about that, even at small doses. Okay, we're going to move on.
Right, talk to the doc.
Dennis McGuire.
Can I say a few things real quick?
Go ahead.
This is Julian. Can I say a few things real quick?
Go ahead.
I'm on dexamethasone with Abby, and I have a follow-up with Dr. E to look at my blood work this week, and my blood pressure is about 136/80, and they say it's okay for now.
Sounds good to me. That's about more mine is.
I would take that.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, thank you.
Dr. E does, I know for a fact that she prefers Dex over prednisone. She uses Dex over prednisone, but that's just one of the people. Peter, can we could we visit with John Birch? Because
Sure.
I know Herb's done some research for him.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead. You're up.
The question I've got, and it's kind of triggered by the gentleman earlier, the first one up on the program tonight. But I have another medical condition. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 5.5 years ago, and to date it hasn't really interfered with my treatment for the prostate cancer. But I'm coming to to kind of a fork in the road where my GU is I'm going to use the word reluctant, but he's actually said he wouldn't put me on carboplatin, for example, because it would have an impact to the Parkinson's. So the broad question is, does anybody run into that or aware of any situations where there's a conflict between some of the truths we're talking about here and Parkinson's in particular? And Herb, I sent you a note on that earlier today. I don't want to put you on the spot if you haven't had a chance to read.
All right, let me respond. I did a literature search looking for any evidence of interactions of carboplatin or cabazitaxel or Taxols with Parkinson's, and I found a couple of case reports, but nothing like saying this should never be done. It was basically, we watched them they get, the disease got worse, their Parkinson's symptoms increased, and so we cut, and then based on that, they cut back on the dose of whatever they were getting. But I couldn't find anything that systematically looked at it. It was isolated case reports. So the question is, you and your doc should discuss whether, if this is the way to go, whether you could just simply monitor your PD more carefully and see if there is a reaction. Because I don't know that it's 100% guaranteed, but I also don't know that it won't happen.
Right, right. And that's what I'm running into is the overlap between the two, the intersection between the two diseases is, I haven't found anybody that's an expert. There's opinions, there's thoughts,
Well, I mean, think of it this way. Parkinson's disease is a disease of nerve degeneration where your dopamine neurons are sort of losing their ability and the drugs that we're taking also affect axonal transmission. So Taxol and carboplatin affect those systems as well. So it wouldn't be unusual to expect some interaction, but there's no firm data that is constant.
John, do you have a BRCA mutation? Is that why you're doing carbo? You want to do carbo?
No, I've done 27 rounds of docetaxel, and I've just finished my 5th round of cabo. And it was really because the docetaxel was starting to take a greater physical toll on me, and the recovery of each of the rounds was getting harder and harder. So we stopped.
And its efficacy was down.
The efficacy was down. There was also to an olaparib, the Lynparza, for a couple of months because I do have an ATM mutation. But as Rick has pointed out to me now more than several times, that was a long shot and it did nothing. So I went from a brief run with Lynparza to the cabazitaxel, and I've just finished, as I said, my 5th round.
And they're talking about adding carboplatin to it. Is that what you're saying?
No. The appearances are that the cabazitaxel efficacy is starting to wear off as well, and so it's then the discussion is what are the next steps. And I do have a second opinion from my prior GU when we were living in the Metro New York area. I was at Sloan, and I've been in communication with her, and she's come back a couple of times and said the carboplatin, and she doesn't. I have not point blank asked her about the Parkinson's impact. She's fully aware that I have that affliction, but the discussion is with my oncologist now in the GU in the Dallas area where we now live. It's one of, I've had that run a couple of times, discussion with him, and that's not his, I don't want to say it's not his desire because he's been more firm about it, but I think I've got to take another charge up the hill with him, and also I'm working to talk to Dr. E as well.
John, one other question. Have you talked to your neurologist, your Parkinson's neurologist?
No, I haven't.
I think that's the person also should have weigh in.
Okay, good point.
Great point. Great, very, very, very good point. I mean, Peter, what and the group, what you should be aware of, and John didn't tell you at the beginning, is that despite all of this chemotherapy, he has a PSA of 3,000. I'll say that again, 3,000. And his symptoms are not that bad. So this is a man that maybe makes PSA, more PSA than most of us make. I mean, the disease is not acting like many people who would have a PSA of 3,000. So there's something weird going on here. And a lot of times when you have a variant disease, they'll throw a platinum-based chemo at it in the hope that that might solve the problem, because obviously the androgen, treating just the androgen receptors is not doing the job.
Right. So
So that's one of the reasons why.
I'm assuming, Kevin, that you've done genomic testing that shows that you're
John, not Kevin.
John, that you've done. You've had a
we've done,
test.
Yes. Well, you're talking about the on the tumor specific.
Well, yeah, but not just a germline test. You've tested recently to see if there's any mutations to the cancer itself.
Tumor specific test. Yes.
Yes.
And it was another read that came back with, it was all ATM, which is what it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, even a couple of years, it could change too. Yeah, I understand now.
Yeah, but Peter.
No. Peter, the test was done within the last 2.5 months.
Okay,
And it
I
confirmed the
understand.
earlier test.
Totally understand why they want to throw carboplatin at it now. I think I would be in the same situation, and I'd probably go for it.
This is John. I've been looking over a little literature myself while we were talking, and I completely agree with everything Herb said.
Okay.
John.
I guess, Rick, the piece I would add to the my PSA count is my onc in Dallas, and actually when he took over my case when we moved from New York, the observation out of Sloan Kettering was my PSA really doesn't seem to move with the scans, and that's been confirmed over the last 3 years. My scans have been steady. That doesn't mean that I'm not without metastatic lesions, but there's been, no, you'd think of 3,000 PSA, I'd be lit up, and then some, I'd be, draining the power of the city of Dallas, but for the Christmas tree lights, but, I'm not. And he's actually saying the PSA is not correlated to my scans, and the scans are, the pictures of what's going on inside the body is far different than what the PSA is measuring.
Yeah,
So.
I'd like to involve Steve Saft. Steve, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
So, in a sense, Steve, this is sort of an exaggerated form of you, about 20 times higher PSA, but not really responding to the Cabazitax or to the taxane.
Well, I just, before we even go there, I have a good friend who's had 7 years of 3,000 PSA with no progression.
Wow. So one of the
I
reasons
think
I
he
wanted
did get
to
it
involve
down
you.
a little bit, but never below 1,500. So like,
one of
we're
the
all
reasons
different.
I wanted to involve you is because you use other markers. You're using LDH. We've
Right.
talked in this forum about
ALP.
what's it called? Chromosome.
Yeah, chromgranin, which they ordered, they were
Chromgranin.
supposed to give me last Thursday, but they forgot. And because I recorded the meeting and went back and saw that I didn't get the results from that, I went to the hospital today to get that test. So that I
Right.
think is for neuroendocrine cancer. I'm not really familiar with that.
So John, I want to ask one more question of John. John, have you looked, what about your alkaline phosphatase? Does that track anything?
It's interesting. That's the ALK, right?
ALP.
Yeah, right.
I've been tracking that from New York because Sloan said that's kind of at times an early indicator of activity, and I am currently, my ALK is running right around 90 to 100 in the blood work. I'm going to say before I started the chemo 3 years ago, I was up in 200, in the 200 range at Sloan Kettering, but it came down remarkably, I think fairly quickly on the, it wasn't probably more than 4 or 5 rounds of chemo and the ALKs were down. I haven't got my Dallas on to really pay a lot of attention to it, but that's an interesting question.
Well, that's what I was thinking of. I was going to ask you about ALK and if you're measuring LDH, like Steve measures it, if anybody's done a chromgranin test to see if there's anything unusual. I know, Len, I don't know if you're with us or not, but I mean, we've talked about the chromgranin test on here as being a possible marker for neuroendocrine disease, right, Len?
Yes, that's right, Rick. Chromgranin C.
How do you spell that?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Wait a second. They gave me chromgranin A. Is that the wrong one?
A is
well, wait, maybe I had it wrong. I'll have to look it up.
I actually went and asked the one of the clinical nurses that I called, because I think there's an A, a B, and a C.
Chromogranin A is the one that's used for neuroendocrine.
Okay, right.
I think it's, what is it, pancreatic or something like that? Other tumors.
Yeah, it's chromgranin A. That's right.
That's
Thanks.
okay. You're okay, Mr. Saf. Don't worry.
But
Don't
that's
take what we say. Don't take
Not
what we
hardly.
say as gospel here. We're not docs, remember?
Not hardly, yeah. Well, but it's, you know, these are all sort of indications and directions, and it's really helpful.
Right.
Rick, are you suggesting the LDH? They've run the LDH on me over the years. I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. But the chromogranum, that's new to me. Is that something I should be looking at or having done?
Well, first of all, the chromogranin is just a measure to see if your disease is not acting like normal disease. So it's probably worth doing, which is what Steve has come to the conclusion, and that's why they're doing it. LDH is something I know Len's talked about, Steve follows. Anybody want to talk a little bit about LDH?
I will
why
say
you do
that
it?
every time my disease gets active, the LDH goes up. You know, and frankly, this last test that I took this week, it was 900, which is a new record for me. I think normal, the high end is 150.
Steve, what are you correlating it to, the PSA or another measure?
No, you know, like again, LDH ALP is what I usually call it, the alkaline phosphatase. I guess some people call it ALK, but those can be indicators of cancerous growth.
Right.
And so if I see them and watch them and then look for other signs, I don't think any one of them, including PSA for you especially, is, you know, is the be all end all indicator. So I watch them, I track them, I look for trends. I always got everything done at least once a month. And if the doctors wouldn't give it to me, you can go online to Lab Extension and get LabCorp tests that are less than, you know, $30 for PSA and not, I think, about the same for a combination of CBC and CMP, which gets them all. So I just do that because hopefully, if you know, when things start to happen, I'd rather be on top of it sooner than later.
Right.
And I think it's worked for me sometimes, but sometimes it's hard for me to convince the doctors to get as excited as I am. So,
Len, what does the LDH actually, or Herb, what does the LDH actually measure? What's the LDH telling us?
It's metabolic activity, and I'm not sure whether it's bone or other places, but it's basically, I'm much more confident in alkaline phosphatase because that's really bone specific.
Yeah, I agree with Herb. Lactate dehydrogenase, LDH, is non-specific. It could be elevated in a number of different organ diseases, but also in bone. Bone is one of them.
Okay.
Okay, guys.
Well, thank you. This is a good food for thought. Herb, I appreciate the research you did on that because I think that's going to give me some empirical data, at least go back to my doc here in Dallas and say, you know, I don't want to say put up or shut up, but it's like, wait a minute, what is the objection?
Right. But also, John, I think, you know, Southwestern has some great neurologists. So,
And that's where my neurologist is too. So I'll pursue that that discussion with him at the same time. And I need to loop the two of them together somehow.
yes.
Yeah.
And
And,
the-
and let us also share, I want to share something else with the group. I want to share something else with the group because again, it's really important for the group. I mean, when the doctor turns around as he did to John, and he says to John, look, I don't think you're going to respond to anything else. We can see how you do with lutetium, Lu177, but if lutetium doesn't work, it's the end of the road. That really bothers me because I think there are options out there. And that's what would encourage me to go seek a second opinion, maybe change my quarterback. But, you know, if John is not proactive, he's basically come to the end of the road with this guy, other than when lutetium gets approved. That's it. We're done. And that's what bothers Len and John, and rightly so. And if they come to this group and we feed them these ideas, they're going to push that doctor to the limit. He may not be so happy about it, but he needs to be pushed to the limit because maybe his opinion isn't the final opinion. So I don't want to sound like I'm spouting or ranting, but we got to keep challenging these docs, especially when they're telling you, yeah, there's only one other treatment, and that's the lutetium when it gets approved.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't done a chromgranin test. He doesn't know. If your disease was neuroendocrine, yeah, then we're challenged with what are we going to give you next? But don't stop until we know that. He doesn't have the information. In my view is he doesn't have enough information to tell you that nothing else.
And talk to the neurologist about the carboplatin thing. 'Cause I know I've gotten pushback from doctors about drugs. You know, one oncologist says, "Oh no, you can't take it because it'll flare up the cancer," but another one says that's not true. So research it. You know, see your other doc and see if get to the bottom of it.
Okay, good.
And
this is all very good input and much appreciated.
And the big positive takeaway was Stephen's anecdotal story of his friend who's been living with 3,000 PSA for 7 years. That's remarkable. Hopefully he'll come on the call sometime.
Well, it is when we all beat ourselves up over what our level of PSA is. And, you know, and I've been at this for over 16 years now. And it's like, geez, you know, I don't want to say we haven't worried about it, but my yaks have always said it's just a number. And, you know, you try to keep that in perspective, except, you know, it's an interesting statement when he finally says there's no correlation between your disease progression and the PSA. So it's like, well, what do you do next?
Right.
So,
you know, one thing that maybe we can do, maybe you could do it, is maybe we can place John in touch with your buddy and they can compare notes. There may be some similarities there. There may be something they can learn from each other.
I'll give him a call in the next day or two and ask him. Sure.
I'd appreciate that.
He lives in Florida. He's the guy that actually went on a only red grape diet for about 6 months when he first got diagnosed. So
okay.
There's all, but you know, so far he's doing great. Plays golf 3 times a week.
Okay,
that's better I'm doing between the Parkinson's and the.
We got to move on to the
All right,
lightning
sorry.
round, guys. We got to move on to the lightning round now. We're running close to the wire here. John Antonucci, what do you have? Did you leave us, John?
Got a quick dietary issue. I got one time we were talking to a new guy a couple of weeks ago who was in some difficulty, and a telephone voice came on. I think it was Ken, suggesting that the guy stay away from sugar. And I was wondering if this is a controversial issue or not, and if it is, maybe Ken and I can get together and report back to the group what we find out, if Ken's willing, if it was even Ken.
Yeah, sugar's always.
Yeah, it was me. It was.
Yeah.
Well, it was a comment from Paul at MD Anderson to stay away from sugar, but I'd be happy to chat with you, John.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat box and we can talk sometime and get back to the group if you want.
Good enough.
Sugar's always been considered an absolute no-no because cancer loves sugar. Cancer loves glucose. And, you know, maybe Herb or Len can talk about that, but we know that it's like giving prostate cancer testosterone, except that all cancer, from what I understand, I don't know about blood cancers, but solid tumor cancers seem to love sugar. So it's always encouraged to go to avoid as much sugar as you can, and even natural sugars.
John, I've read quite a bit about a lot of this, but sugar especially, and I can't find anything that says sugar is okay for somebody with advanced PCA. So that's just my input. It's hard to, it's the best thing you can do.
Okay. Well, John, you and Ken work together. Yeah, you and Ken put your heads together and see if you can figure it out.
Just one quick comment. Prostate cancer is not one of the faster growing tumors like other tumors. So it's not as critical to watch your sugar intake in prostate cancer as it is for many other types of cancer. That's it. Go ahead.
So let me just, Peter, I just want to say, Peter, don't knock yourself. If we don't get to you this week, because we have to finish early, we'll give you priority next week. Peter will keep a list.
Okay.
And if you really need to talk to us in the last 10 minutes that we have, put it in the chat window. But otherwise, these are important discussions.
Okay.
And I think, you know, we don't talk about sugar enough on here. And that Dr. John raised it, and John and Ken are going to do something together is fantastic.
Right.
So I don't want us to cut off these conversations because we're trying to knock ourselves out because we got a short night. But please let us know if you've got to talk to us this week. If you can wait till next week, we will give you priority next week. Peter will pass on the people who haven't spoken. He'll pass them on to me, and I'll make sure that you get up early in the conversation.
Okay. Okay. Dennis McGuire.
Hey everyone, just a quick update on my treatment. I had my second lutetium treatment on January 20th. And at that point, I had another PSA read and my PSA decreased again. So now, since I started, my PSA is down around 70%. Still have some work to do. It's now at 90. So that's the update.
Very good. So it dropped 50% on the first one, and now it's dropped further 70% since the beginning. Pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. 50% at 3 weeks and then 70 at 6 weeks.
Sounds like your cancer doesn't like that stuff.
Yeah, congrats, Dennis. Very good news.
Yeah, thank you.
And how are you doing? How are you doing with the treatment? Feeling okay?
Yeah, it takes a few days to flush out the lutetium. So there's some fatigue for a few days, some dry mouth, but then you gradually come back. So yeah.
Very
So
good.
Dennis, I was thinking the rounds were six. I was thinking the rounds were 6 weeks. You're doing it every 3 weeks?
No, the treatments are 6 weeks, but the PSA test
Oh, I got you.
every 3 weeks.
Okay,
Well, those are pretty good numbers.
very good. Herb, you've got an update for us.
Does anybody want to ask Dennis a question about the PSA tests, about the PSMA treatment, since that's something that concerns everybody? Any questions about the PSMA treatment?
Where can I sign up for results like that?
Now, I have a meeting coming up with a group from Australia on the 7th, and I'm kind of looking for questions to pose to this group. So they're going to do like 2 treatments 2 weeks apart, which I find a little unusual. And then if they find results are less than impressive, they're going to add some actinium. So it's a little different, but not sure. I may have more information in our next meeting, but I'm going to chat with them for 45 minutes on the 7th.
Very good. So are you
Is
scheduled?
this for you? Is this for you personally, Ken? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, yeah, last meeting I said, Paul said it looked like lutetium was going to be delayed, so he's kind of encouraging me to step up. I'm going to wait till the 20th to see if, in fact, it is delayed. I don't know. I talked to Brian Heisig this morning, and he said his information from Novartis was that, and Bryce Olson, that they're having a problem with their production facilities. So, don't know. Don't know. For me personally, yeah.
Well,
So 2 rounds, that's...
I mean,
Go ahead.
as you know, they told us it's not production. She told me point blank, this is not a production issue. So maybe Bryce or Brian Heisey have other information. We think it's an issue in delivery because there aren't enough radionuclide technicians. And this past week, I got some more information that would point to that, because when Alexa was due for some radionuclide therapy this week at MD Anderson, she said to me, all the thyroid people, they've had their appointments canceled and they can't get an appointment. And I said, well, what's the medicine? She said, well, it's a radioactive medicine. I said, well, that doesn't surprise me because there aren't enough radionuclide technicians. I said, do you need the radionuclide technician to take this medicine? She said, yeah, it's an oral medicine and the radionuclide technician is standing right by us to help us take it. Now, maybe Olson and etc. know more, but call Brian Heisey and ask Brian Heisey, where's he getting his information from?
Well, Bryce said he has contact. He's like the number 2 GAN at Novartis. That's where he got the delay. And Wong at MD Anderson and Gilbert advised me that it's not that much different than radium-223 as far as delivery.
No. But
So
I
he
think
said
that's
radium-2... Go ahead.
I don't think it's easy to get radium-223 now. There aren't enough technicians to deliver it.
Wong didn't seem like it was a big issue at their facility at MD Anderson and Gilbert, so I don't know. You may have more information than I.
Hey, Rick, this is John. I did the radium-223 in 2018 at Sloan, and I remember scheduling was very sensitive, in part because of where the raw materials are coming from, but also the staffing.
Right.
And that was back then before lutetium.
Right. All right. And, people are assuming because Novartis stopped the trial, the assumption is, they can't make it. This is all down to Novartis. And my assumption is it's not down to Novartis, but people are going to point their fingers at Novartis if it gets FDA approved. And I don't think they can deliver the treatment. I actually spoke to E about it on Friday, and I said, you know, why don't you see in Houston Methodist, see if people are having problems getting their treatment. But when Alexa said to me, they can't get, the thyroid people can't get their radionuclide appointments, I mean, it waved a big red flag. So again, I don't have hard information, it's purely surmise, but just the way that it happened, and we told Novartis a month before, there's problems getting appointments for this drug in the managed access trial. And we had heard from, I think it was Mount Sinai and one other place that said there weren't enough radionuclide technicians, and we fed that back to Novartis. Sure enough, 4 weeks later, they stopped the trial. Again.
So Dennis, where's your lutetium coming from? Is it from the US or from Germany? Do you know?
They fly it in from Europe. I think it's Italy.
Italy.
So it comes in the night before. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's
And,
got a real short shelf life.
Yeah, and the shame of it is the infusion itself takes 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. It's real short. It's an infusion. It's not a pill. So it's very similar to radium-223. Do you have any problem with scheduling at University of Chicago?
Well, no, my 2 treatments have been on schedule.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that, which is that's exactly the reason why they stopped the trial. And they said when they stopped the trial, we will continue to deliver these treatments to everybody who's already in the trial. And we will, but we cannot take any new people in after November 19th. And Jerry Deans was the last guy in. I think Jerry, God bless him, is there today or yesterday, getting his second infusion, getting his second treatment. That was the reason why, because they knew what they had. They knew their staff, and they planned out for 3 or 4 months so that they could meet the needs of the people that have been admitted to the trial.
Gotcha. Well, Dennis, your numbers are excellent. So good for you. I'll let you guys know what happens. I'll let you know what happens in Australia.
Herb, where do you weigh in on
treatments
this?
are they planning on giving you?
Wait.
Dennis, I wanted to know how many treatments are they planning on giving you?
The program is for 6 treatments.
Herb, where do you weigh in on this? Because you're in the weight too for it.
Well, you're right. I mean, I don't know what the whole hang up is. I know clearly there is one. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. Yes. I think staffing everywhere is a problem, and it may not just be for radioactive iodine or nucleotides, because, for example, my brother's supposed to get a stem cell transplant at Hopkins, and they closed it all down because of COVID, because they don't, both transmission and staffing. So it may be more widespread than just nucleotides.
Yeah. So you've got the last word, Herb. You've got the floor here.
No, let's give it to somebody else. I can wait.
You sure?
Yeah. Gary, you had a question.
Mine can certainly wait.
Yeah, go ahead, Herb. Give us an
No, you got 30 seconds, so we'll save it.
You got a minute or so. Yeah, go ahead.
All right,
Yeah, but a minute isn't enough to do justice to anybody, Peter.
Okay,
so why don't we just, please, if you had a question and we didn't get to you, please be sure to let one of us know by next week, or Peter will send us a list, and we promise we'll give you priority next Monday. We don't have anybody coming into the room afterwards. But unfortunately, this is going to be, it's going to be like this with our meetings through February and through March. And you can blame that on the calendar. That's just how, on our Tuesday meetings through February through March.
Okay.
We apologize, but the only other alternative is to run meetings on successive nights. And I don't think you want that.
Okay. Okay. Well, Kevin, you see how we go. So join us next week. Next week we're meeting on Monday. And
I'll be available.
you're welcome to join the conversation on Monday.
Do we have your email? If not, make sure if Carl has it, he'll send it to us, or go to the website and sign up so that you get the reminder.
Okay.
I just wanted you guys to know that I signed up for a PSMA, and I'm a newbie. I'm just starting my treatment.
Tom,
And
we
they-
gotta go next week, please.
And
Sorry,
I was
but
turned down.
Tom, we gotta go. We'll discuss it next week, or
Yeah, we
why
got-
you would turn
we'll
down what the
first, Tom.
story is.
We'll put you up first, Tom.
Okay.
On Monday.
Thanks, guys.
I don't think it's
We've gotta
relevant.
close the meeting.
Most of you guys are well into the treatment, but if they won't approve it for staging.
Tom, we've gotta go.
Go.
Bye, guys.
So long, all right.
Sorry. Good night.
Ben, you can stop the
Hey,
recording.
Marshall says, so long.